Deep in the forests of North America, a creature is said to exist. A creature that people are encountering. With far too many reports to ignore, there are elements of truth behind these accounts that mankind can no longer ignore.
Breaking news out of Texas, Bigfoot is real.
Could a breeding population of large, upright, hairy hominids really exist in North America? Or is there something more paranormal at work here, deep in the woods? If just one footprint, one wood knock, or one howl is real, then man's understanding of primate evolution
would be changed forever.
Join the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective as they delve further into the mysteries of Bigfoot and other paranormal phenomena through the eyes of witnesses, investigators, critics, and skeptics. Join us as we look to discover what lurks from behind tall trees.
Welcome to tonight's edition of From Behind Tall Trees. It's ladies' night, as usual, with me and Carey. Tonight we have TIM DENMAN on. So we're really looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks. So how is everybody?
I appreciate it. Wonderful. Thank you for having me, by the way. I appreciate it.
We're glad to have you.
Get a chance to talk about my crazy experiences. So yeah.
Absolutely. So what got you started with this crazy?
Probably, well, I'm going to be 50, so I'm probably the same as everybody else. They had a really bad cartoon show, the Sid and Marty Krofft Super Show. And so Bigfoot and Wild Boy, I would watch it in, reruns. And so that started the obsession. And then you see Andre the Giant playing this monster creature. And so you read every book you can and you're fascinated with it. Then as you grow a little bit older, you're not so much concerned with the 99 cases that people can prove wrong. It's that 1% that makes you pique your interest. So it's been a lifelong obsession with that. I had a grandmother that if a picture fell off the wall, somebody was dying. You couldn't rock a rocking chair without anybody in it or somebody was dying. Don't sing in a bed. So I don't know whether she just she used that to keep us to behave or if any of that had any truth to it. So it kind of started that lifelong obsession with me. So yeah. Yep.
Old wives' tales are the amazing things.
Oh, absolutely. And if a picture fell, you were counting fingers, toes, and digits and making sure it wasn't you. There were manholes that would open up and swallow you. She would, if she wanted us to inside when it was dark, she would yell jack-o'-lantern, whether we saw one or not. So 13 grandkids would go scurrying into the house. So, and so it started with that. You know what? She was a God-blessed hillbilly raised West Virginia hillbilly, but most important person in my life growing up. So yeah. So
have you had any
interest? And then, go ahead.
Have you had any experiences?
Actually, paranormal. Actually, right now in my house, we're started to remodel. So I've now bought 16 batteries in the last 2 days. So every time we do that, it stirs it up, pisses it off, and here we go again. So it's mild compared to, my wife has had her hair pulled. She's been slapped.
Wow.
We've had at one point it was so bad we had a pastor come in, 6'5", 300 pounds. I don't know what he was fighting in my back hallway, but he left and brought his wife and son back, and it was a holy war back there. And I'm like, I'm staying out of that. So yeah. So that's kind of where we're at right now. It's starting to peak again there. So
did it make it worse when you brought the priest in?
For a while. It wasn't happy at first, but once they got through what they were doing, and the creepiest when it kind of, if I can tell you real quick, is my one son, you'd hear him giggling and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm playing with the funny guy. Okay. a little bit. And a couple months went by, it became the guy. And then it became the scary guy. And then it became the monster. And then my oldest son and my middle son wouldn't go down my back hallway. So it kind of escalated, from there. And we had a friend who hadn't been in the house called from out of state. And she's like, I'm coming in this weekend. I need to come to your house. And we're like, for a visit? And she's like, no. And she went through and pinpointed every location in the house without being there. So, as an intelligent adult, you disbelieve it at first, but then you're like, yeah, this is creepy. And so it's been mellow for a while now, but it'll start back up. So, yeah.
Boy.
So,
remodeling is fun.
Yeah, I saw that you're doing that now, so yeah. So,
yeah, we've done quite a few remodeling projects. So yeah.
So with that, it was always the paranormal's always been a part, and again, it's more so, I'm more obsessed and concerned with the ones I can't prove, because I used to manage at Rent-A-Center. And I've been called out to haunted appliances, which, for the love of God, there's no haunted appliances. I got called out once, and I went out, and the people said their stove was haunted. And I'm like, okay, I got to go. I have to. And so they told me on the way there that the skillets would fly off the stove. The back wouldn't get hot, and the oven door would fly open. I go out there, first thing I see is they had a novelty skillet with a handle about 3 foot long, and the stove was tilted. So when they would start heating it, the handle would swing and throw the skillet off. So I'm like, that fixed that problem. And since the stove was tilted, when the pot would heat up, it would buckle like cooking baking sheets do, kick the front door open, and then the tray would fall out. So I fixed it, and the husband came in and goes, that's all that was wrong with it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. And he's like, I am so stupid. And he balled up his fist and punched himself in the face. And I just walked out the door. I'm like, I'm done. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the fun ones to go on, And you guys probably know as well as I do, it's the people want to believe something so much that they sometimes see something and they don't want to buy the logical, reason it's there.
I agree.
And it's fun, but it's, yeah, so it's
I'm
kind
like
of
the more
same
the
with,
debunker in my family than anything, because I'm always like, nope, that sounded like a truck. Nope, that sounded like a car. Nope, that was. So
exactly, and it's hard because you don't want to hurt their feelings, and don't want to say, yeah, you're crazy. I had the one website I belong to. A lady posted a picture recently. It's a picture of the shadows. This dark corner. And she's like, there's shadow people in there. I'm like, I can't see anything because it's too dark. And she's like, yeah, that's because they're shadow people. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. It's a picture of a dark corner. There's nothing there. But you have to be gentle and nice and not make them feel bad.
Right.
Which is part of the and you guys, it's a delicate balance that you have to walk.
It's a fine line for sure.
Yeah.
So what?
And so, I'm sure you're.
Sorry, I think we're all having internet issues and a little slow today.
I'm slow normally, so.
That's me every day. What is like one thing that's really gotten you to believe? I know like a lot of us have been doing a lot of research over the time, but there's usually that one experience.
You mean a paranormal itself, or
no, as in Bigfoot?
Or
like what have
Bigfoot?
you? We'll talk about it all. That's fine with me.
I'm not.
Yeah, where I grew up at, as you go back and look at some of the stuff that we would find big nests that just smelled atrocious. You didn't really piece it together. Where I grew up at in Greene County, there was probably 5 farms. So you're looking at 5,000 or 6,000 acres that you could run on.
So everything smells like trash.
It was, and it's not skunk. If it's a different musk. It's a I almost call it heavy, you know. And so, like I said, my experience, I took my dog out. It was March 3rd, 2003. You know, at that point, I was managing a Fortune 500 company. I was teaching college business. I'm a perfectly logical person. And so we live in a valley, but we live about halfway up the valley. So the main road's about 20 feet below us. So I take my dog to the end of the yard. It's early in the morning. It's like -7. And I get to the end of the yard and I see two of my neighbors, you know, all fur covered, come walking up out of this field, walk across the road and hinge step up into the woods, you know, right down the road from me. And at first I'm going, why would my neighbors be out this early in the morning, especially as cold as it is? And I start walking back through the yard and I'm going, wait a second. I don't have 7-foot tall neighbors and I don't have neighbors that are covered in hair. So the logical mind kicks in and you're going, yeah, nah, I don't know what's going on there, you know? And so it just eats at you because you're like, it shouldn't be there and you shouldn't have seen what you saw. And so I started doing research. And in like 1978, there was a state trooper reported one on the road that I lived on. It walked across the cornfield in front of him. I'm like, that might validate it some, you know, and then I happened to just post something and talk to another lady that I've known for years, a well-trusted site. She's like, oh yeah, like 15 minutes down the road when we were younger, we spotlighted one and watched it for like 10 minutes. And then we realized we're sitting in the back of a truck, so we need to get out of there. You know, so then you start looking for validation. And that's how I first met Eric Altman and Sean Forker. So I've known those guys like 20 years. And so you start building more and more people. And what I found out, and hopefully you guys have as well, is the people in the community are super intelligent, and you know, and they're not nuts, they're not loonies. Most of us want the truth, whatever that is. You know, you do have your ones that see blob squatch. You know, so that you know, that kind of aided my experience. And then over the few years, I always joke and say, you know, Bigfoot caused my wife to quit smoking. Because the one day that she used to go out on our porch and smoke, and she had we had a big hairy dog, and she had combed it out and left the hair in the yard. That's a conversation for another day. But she was smoking that night. She comes in and she's like, you know, we had a peeping Tom neighbor, and she's like, someone's out there throwing rocks at me. And I'm like, so I went out thinking perhaps it was him, didn't see anything. Go out the next morning, all the dog hair had been picked up. There were lava rocks all over my front porch, and we cast like a 14-inch footprint. And I'm like, okay, there's definitely something, you know. He was probably 20 feet away from her and crouched down. So she quit smoking for a while because she's like, I'm not going back outside. You know,
I used to smoke. I would have sat out there every
day. So it kind of gets, you know, you have that experience. You know, there's nights where it sounds like Animal from the Muppet Show is up in the woods playing drums. Because where my property is, there's like 200 or 300 acres. It's abandoned. It's owned by a gas company that nobody goes on. You know, there's a big property across from me. You know, and you would be out there at night, and you sometimes occasionally hear the scream. So most of our activity was from like March to September. So as it returned, then you kind of see, you know, are they, you know, do they migrate? Are they, you know, do they hibernate? Some of the stuff, you know, you start to try to find similar, you know, information, you know, and your first obsession is, well, I want to capture one. And I don't know about you guys. I know, I think you have activity on your property as well, correct?
Yeah. All the time.
So my obsession, so my obsession kind of went from, you know, trying to catch it to say, you know what, they're here. They don't bother us. You know, I'm not going to put out a trail cam. I'm just going to let it be, you know, because there's the lure of the money, but then there's what if they get this poor thing, you know?
Right.
And what do they do? You know, so it's a hard dilemma to, you know, to find yourself in, you know. So we just
Gwen's
kind of
place has the
you know,
cool, interesting concept of it like that too. It's very interesting. I think that Gwen's neighbor is what I'll call him. likes to
Yeah, that's what we just call them,
only
family.
really be around it, or family, only likes to be around certain people and at different times. It's kind of a weird. I've even noticed it, and I've only been down 2 or 3 times, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's probably some of the best experiences I've had so far, which is really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is kind of, like, every so often they remind you, hey, we're here. Now, if you're out at the end, where we have a bonfire, sometimes it'll feel heavy. That's the only way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does make the hair stand up on the back of your head, but you're like, as long as you stay up there and admire me from afar, we don't have to go toe to toe. But I may lose that fight, but I'm getting hair. You know what I mean? So yeah, so it is. It's because I always laugh. There was a Daffy Duck cartoon where Daffy is trying to get the Tasmanian devil back into the cage, and he's just beating the hell out of him the whole time. And he finally gets him in the cage, and he drops $1, and the Tasmanian grabs the $, and he goes in and just pummels him. And he comes out and goes, "I'm a coward, but I'm a greedy little coward." So yeah, so that would be me. So it is kind of, again, you guys probably, I don't know how you are with like your research, but anytime someone posts or sends me just one picture, I'm sorry, that's school trying to get me to register. Sorry. One picture, it's hard for me, especially if it's a trail cam, because they'll show me a picture of, a cheetah or squirrel that's moving 100 miles an hour that's in perfect proportion, and then we get one hair and they're like, it's Bigfoot.
No, not necessarily.
Speaking of that equipment, what is your favorite equipment in research? Like, I know what mine is, but what is your favorite equipment to use when you're out doing your research?
You know what, I just like the standard handheld, night vision camera. And sometimes when you go out, especially, it's hard for me because I can go 100 feet to the end of my yard, So a lot of times you could just kind of go out there and set in the dark, and so that's kind of, I do struggle with some of the paranormal stuff that they make those, some of those boxes that the spirits can communicate with. I'm like, I know Marconi invented radio and it just came to him because, radio waves travel, and he builds it. I do sometimes struggle with people building, the voice boxes that pick up stuff and some of the meters and stuff. And I'm like, and then probably what's probably hurt you guys as well as me is the shows sometimes do not help. Like I love mountain monsters. In the episode about Washington County, they find Bigfoot. Bigfoot has a fire in the cave, and he has a map system. And I'm like, those of us who can understand that that's just fun and games, it's okay. But then you have the ones that take that to heart, and it just unvalidates everything you guys have done. Eric, Sean's done. Tim Stover's another one. I really like Tim because Tim, if you have to circle it in red, don't post it.
I have
kind of hard
that.
Because anytime we've brought anything up or any kind of evidence that we might have had, a lot of that gets brought up. So why haven't so and so found it? I'm like, it's a show, people. It's a show. It's all about ratings. And shows.
If they found
what's
Bigfoot,
out there.
The show would be over.
Exactly, it's a show.
Exactly. Thank you. And I do have to laugh when they say Bigfoot expert. How can you be an expert on something we haven't scientifically proven is real yet? We can take information, and we can take patterns, and we can make an educated guess, But some of the shows you've watched over the years when people say Bigfoot talks. Like Josh Gates on one episode was in Brazil, and the guy said Bigfoot said hi or something. He goes, so wait a second. Bigfoot speaks English, but he grew up in, so it does.
Whatever, Josh.
So it does make it real.
Oh, come on, spooning.
You know what? I have to admit, if I could be one living person, it would probably be Josh Gates. He's like the coolest.
Yes.
You know.
So super jealous of all of his adventures.
Me too.
Yeah, and a lot of the research he has, has been good. Aren't we all? So
yeah, I just want to quit my job and hunt Bigfoot
so
full time, 24/7.
There you go. Yeah, but you know what? It only lasts so long because once you find him, you're out of work again. So
again, and there would be no television shows either.
And the same with some of the paranormal. Some of the paranormal shows.
Like Zach Bagans.
It's hard to watch. Oh, don't get me started.
Like when they throw themselves.
Oh my God.
They throw themselves into the hallway and are like screaming like little girls. I'm like, come on, guys. Really? That is not how it's worked. That's not how it works.
Right. Yeah. And I love Chris. Good. Yeah. Exactly. But we're taking our integrity. Yeah.
Right.
And I love
right.
Because Chris Williams is so real. I love her because the one guy had posted about the shows, and she's like, listen, I've been doing this 25, 30 years, and she's like, I've never once been possessed by a demon, but you guys are possessed every week.
Yeah, they find something in every episode. I'm like, that's not how this works. I live in a haunted house and cannot give you evidence every single day. It doesn't work that way.
Thank you.
I'm possessed by my personality. It's not anything else. And it's so frustrating because you're trying to do legitimate research. Yeah. And you just get these bozos, and it's just like, come on, guys, help us out here. But you're right, it's all about the money.
I can tell you, there's a lot of times that we're out in the woods here at my house and we get evidence and I never post it because I know I'm going to get ripped apart. That's what people do.
Yep.
You post something and everybody rips it apart. Well, you know what? I'm not out to say I know, but I know.
I really
I've
feel
eliminated everything else that it can possibly do.
I think Gwen and I both feel this way. And I don't know, I've not obviously lived there as long as Gwen has, but I really feel that they've accepted me and the fact that I've been there, and we've actually had more experiences together and knocks and stuff like that when when it's only been Gwen and I. When it's been Gwen and I, they're like, they knock on the tree and they're like, hey, the girls are up. It feels very accepting and different, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's not an aggressive kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And to me, what I saw, and all my research, to me, they're primates. I sometimes upset people, like the one guy was talking about, they can go interdimension by knocking on trees, and they can travel dimensional, but then they run down deer and beat them with a stick. So if you've evolved from hopping from tree to tree, don't you think your method of killing a deer would evolve as well too? So it's kind of one of those,
You would think.
And you see some of the Native American people, they talk about it being mystic, and that's not been my experience. It's overwhelming, just because it's not known, and it is something different, and it technically shouldn't exist. And people always make the argument,
there's a lot of things that technically shouldn't exist.
Right. So it's kind of one of those in that realm, but people say, well, it should have found it yet. Well, there's like 300 plane wrecks in the Pacific Northwest. They're not moving, and they haven't found them. I guess the question is, where's the intelligence level of it? It's, that's, I just always refer to it as kind of the missing link, that link between, the next step. I'm not a big fan of evolution because you can't make me believe that the entire world evolved from one single cell organism that came out of the ocean. I'm a Greene County hillbilly, but I'm sorry, if you put a bird in a cage 1,000 years from now, it's still going to be a bird. I believe in adaptation, but so I'm kind of with you guys. I'm a believer, but I'm a skeptical believer, and like you said, you didn't want to put the evidence out there because that's part of the thing. Is people can be uncouth, and you try to have respect,
Mhm.
So,
I don't put anything out there and go, look at my Bigfoot evidence. I'm like, this is what I heard at my house.
Right.
I will
Somebody tell
you,
me
if
what
I
it
get a
is.
track,
I don't know what
if
it is.
if I get a track, that shit's going all over Facebook. It's everywhere. I don't even care. Like, if I can actually get my own one,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. You know what? And I posted mine, and you do get the ridicule. What's that supposed to be? Well, you know what? Hey, I look at it this way. You know what? I've never talked to you before in my life. If I never talk to you again and you're going to, ridicule me, I can be happy. I'm just putting it out there,
Right. We get ridiculed, and we never put anything out there except for the fact that we believe in Bigfoot, and we still get ridiculed and called crazy and you name it. It's okay. It's okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Call me
My
crazy.
own neighbor.
It's okay. You know what? Hey.
I asked my 2 neighbors the other day. I'm like, seriously, guys, have you not had anything strange happen or anything weird? Any weird noises? Any weird sounds? And they all look at me like my head just spun off and like pea soup's gonna shoot out my mouth next. Like they just smile and they're like, no. And I'm like, y'all are lying. That's all I got. They live, we're not very close, but close enough. I know they're hearing stuff. But I'm the crazy lady.
Well,
in the
just like the
neighborhood,
Amish
so it's okay.
dude that looked at us like we lost our marbles too.
Mhm.
Well,
We know he's thinking.
that's a lot to be said. Well, you know what? It's funny because a lot of people do, and I've found with the research is, your mind's told you not to believe. And so if you open that door to
Right.
believing, especially with the paranormal stuff, the psychic stuff, we're so conditioned. No, you can't do that.
Mhm.
35 years of therapy for anxiety. I ask counselors all kinds of questions. And they've said, you know what? Yeah, there's been certain people that have committed crimes. They were there physically, but they weren't there. Something had, they had opened their mind to something. And so that is a fine line, and I'll be like you said, you don't want to tell people I've had this experience, and so you try to shut that door because that's overwhelming, So and I get that, and those are the people that, like you said, your neighbors. Oh, we don't hear anything, They're all like, And my funny story, my cousin I was a minister, and he went up north, so it was Meet the Pastor Sunday, and he was talking to everybody, and just offhandedly, he says, hey. I love it up here. It's like, as long as I don't open my back door and I see a Bigfoot, I'll be fine. He's like, so a guy comes up to him after the sermon. He goes, yeah, if you see one, don't worry about it. And my cousin's like, okay, they're pulling my leg. And he goes, after about the 6th person who pulled me aside privately and goes, listen, they live, in the valley below the parsonage. They're like, if you go out and you see one eating apples off the tree, just leave it be. And he was like, he's the most stunned he was in the world. He's like, now, were they all in on a joke on me? Or he's like, but they all pulled me aside privately. So I think some people, that's kind of how I am and you are now, you guys, they're there. You want the proof, but, God bless them.
To tell you the truth, I like the interaction.
Garbage.
I like the interaction more than I need to tell everybody what's going on. Like, if I can cohabitate like Gwen is with hers, then I would be ecstatic. Like that would be my ideal.
Absolutely.
That would be my ideal moment.
Yeah. And you know what? And it's an absolute blessing, for the few that we've experienced that and we have that. So we're kind of in a select group,
Yeah.
And it's almost like a badge of honor.
It's pretty amazing.
True.
Yeah, and hey, and you know what? And I got to thank the big guy, because no matter what everybody says to me, I can say, you know what? I've sold books around the world, so guess what? You know what I mean? It's not made me rich, but I can say that. So
it's done something for you,
Yeah.
and you know what? If it gives you a little bit of money to do some more research and to get out in the field, then that's how I look at it. It's totally worth it.
yeah, so.
Yeah. I don't want to be rich.
Yeah,
I just want to pay my bills
yeah,
and be able to stay home.
Yeah, and you know what?
Yeah.
It's funny with that is the natural gas boom, I think may have an impact on. It's harder to research now in some ways because a lot of that property they've bought up and blocked off. So it's kind of, I don't want to say created a safe haven for them, but it has, in a lot of, especially where I'm at in Washington, Greene County, a lot of the properties now is blocked off and owned and you can't get on it. So it's a double-edged sword. It cuts down where you can see them, but it also ensures, their survival, like you guys, yours like a family unit? Do you know of? Do you think it's just an individual?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not sure. A gentleman had driven up here from Philly, a 3-hour ride, to tell me that he saw a family of 4 of them in the one research area that I have. And I'm like, okay, he could have told me this on the phone. Like, he drove up here 3 or 4 hours to tell me that. Like, do I completely and fully believe he saw 4? I'm not sure. I'm not going to discredit him. That's his experience. I'm having my own experiences that people don't believe. So, but I think he definitely saw something. So could it be a family? I'm not sure.
Yeah, because that's kind of where I've kind of been at is, the smaller footprint. So it's kind of, the 14-inch. So it's kind of in that juvenile range, whether they're generational, whether they're territorial, So, it was, like I said, you track the patterns, I know they're doing a lot, but it gives it more belief if you can see, there's been 17 sightings from September to April, but there's only been 2 in June. So that June sighting, you can kind of almost discredit, but you can kind of, group together and get a better pattern. So.
Or it was just too damn hot to be outside.
Where are you at?
Right.
Tim, where are you at in Pennsylvania?
I am right on the Greene County, Washington County border. So we're big Steeler fans. We're about a half an hour south of Pittsburgh. So
you have an area down in that direction that I know a lot of people have done some research. My husband and I were actually going to go down there not that long ago. It's a state, it's state forest, state park.
Jumonville Cross down in like Ohio. Ohio Powell has a lot of activity.
I know, I've seen that in that area.
Yeah, they've had I think 10 sightings one summer down there and stuff. So, yeah.
Wow.
Have you researched that area?
Interesting.
You know what? I had an invitation to go down there, but unfortunately, probably with you guys, I work 65 hours a week. So sometimes, the opportunity to get there, and be there is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Being,
right.
So, but yeah, and I know for, Pennsylvania is kind of a Bigfoot hotspot area as well. Cause, I used to live right on the border of West Virginia, Pennsylvania. And, I had an African lion hunting dog that wasn't scared of anything, but for 2 weeks I had to carry her outside to go to the bathroom. So I'm like, if it scared a dog that was trained to kill lions, I'm not going out. I'm right out on the front porch, we're coming right back in. So. So that was kind of,
I have bloodhounds, and they have already gone out on the patio, and they crouch down, their tails between their legs. They won't leave the concrete, and I'm like, okay, it's time to come in. Yep. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's good advice. Listen to them because they know more than we do. Yeah, but that was kind of when I lived out there. That was kind of the genesis because I became interested in writing many years ago because I had a counselor one time told me, well, with your anxiety, she's like, here's what I want you to do. She's like, write a story because then you can control and you can tell everybody what you do, and in that world, you can control your anxiety. That is the biggest lie anyone has ever told you. You have no control over the characters. And it is worse because all you're doing is telling their story. So they won't let you tell it any different.
Right.
So,
Truest story I've ever heard right there.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was like, oh, I was so mad when I went back in, but I was like, it makes sense now. So,
So what got you started writing your screenplay?
actually, I was 13 and I had a teacher let us watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. And the first 30 seconds just kind of changed my life. Wes Craven was my hero. I have a son named Wes. I have, Wes Craven taught college. I taught college. Wes Craven wrote. I wrote. The only thing I haven't done, is direct a movie yet. So it got that in the art of kind of creating, and you open your door, your mind to that kind of stuff. And essentially this was just kind of, at that point I became kind of interested in Bigfoot and that kind of stuff. And I realized, well, that would almost be the perfect war weapon if you could get it in because you can't detect it. And that was kind of the genesis behind the screenplay, where essentially these people, go and look through old houses and find antique furniture. And they go in and they find a big group of houses that have been abandoned. And so as they go in to research it, they come to find out that the government had come in, captured a Bigfoot, had a hormone pack on it, and that was a test area for it to be a soldier. And that didn't work out so well. So the people that are there, they're in a pickle, and it's kind of a redemption story of the main character. Nev helped capture it, helped do that. And then it's her realizing throughout the screenplay that, what I did wasn't right. I made this God's creature into this monster. So she's trying to save the people, herself, and it. So that's kind of where that one came from. So the other ones are just dark, like the other one on this story time. It's just a collection of short stories. One's about a tooth fairy that gets upset because some guy's stealing his teeth, and it doesn't end well in any situation. So, so that's one of the things, much with research is you write and you write. Yeah. That's on there. So, it's the same with research. You do it, and like I've been close 4 or 5 times. Amazon held it the missing link for like almost 8 weeks. And they're like, we're thinking about it. And then they're like, you know what? We're not going to go in that direction. So it's heartbreaking, but you're like, you know what? I was in the game. And so and you realize you don't necessarily write for anybody else. If nobody else reads it, you still gave those characters life, and you're almost like a guardian.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. And so like the prequel to The Missing Link is an origin story, and it's book form, which I normally write screenplays, and it's been working on it 5 or 6 years, and you get to about 30 pages almost done, and then you're like, you know what, this isn't working. So I just had to start from scratch again like 3 weeks ago. So you're just like, for the love of God.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's
I've attempted a book.
It's heartbreaking, but you're like,
I'm like 2 chapters in and was like, I'm not. This isn't working. Yeah. Never picked it up again.
Yeah. And it's hard because there's some screenplays that are 50 pages done, and a character has to die, and you just can't get past that because you're like, I can't stop it. I can't control it, and I don't want to say goodbye to that person yet. So, I can see I have my background there. I apologize. The only thing I'm more obsessed with in the paranormal and Bigfoot is Hank Williams, so I do apologize for all my pictures behind me there. So
do not apologize for Hank Williams.
No.
I'm actually going to Montgomery. We're actually going to Montgomery next September for his 100th birthday celebration. And I can tell you this, there's 107 hotels in Montgomery, Alabama, and they all sold out in July for that week next year. So I'm not the only nut. So.
Oh. So what's up next for you?
I'm probably going to start back from square one, with the book writing wise. I have a follow-up screenplay. So I have a prequel book that tells Nev Richards' story. And then the follow-up has to do with a sea creature not in Loch Ness in the South called the Valley that, she's kind of dealing with and reuniting with some of the people from the original book. So, yeah. And then you always just keep your eye out, you get messages from people like I'm sure you guys do. You get the research. And so, wherever that comes along, you look and kind of, you try to help people and you try to, like we've talked about before, help them decipher what they want to believe and what could believe, what is real and what, how you can help them.
It's funny because I've lived here for 6 years, and it wasn't until the last year and a half after I had my Bigfoot sighting is when this all started. And that's when I started to hear like the things in the woods. And I had to question myself whether was I hearing these before and just was not paying attention, or was I discrediting them for something else? Or was it really like, has this Bigfoot just didn't all of a sudden show up one day? Like,
right.
I had to wonder how long he's been here, that I wasn't paying attention and I was missing it.
No, or was it that, like you guys had said, that he became, they became comfortable around you, because I guess it would be the same as there's certain dogs that hate certain people.
Enough to sit around the fire and have a beer. I wish he'd get that comfortable. That'd be great.
Just come up and just.
Gwen, it's because you have not put out a sturdy enough chair for the man to come sit down with you.
Oh, this is true. Probably.
Yeah, that's true. So structurally wise, I don't think you'd want to get him there and him sit down and fall, because I don't think he would like that very much.
Yeah, he'd probably be mad at that point. But we are putting in a boulder wall so we could sit down on the boulders. I mean, that would hold him, I'm sure.
You know what? That would be interesting to see, because as natural habitat, they may be interested in that. So.
I was actually curious about that fact. Like, I know that you're doing I know in paranormal that structurally, that's when a lot of paranormal activity happens, is when you do like indoor construction, tearing down walls or doing whatever you're going to do. I was actually curious about that, Gwen, because I know you're doing a ton of outdoor like construction and fixing things and putting new things in. I was wondering how the activity would change with you with that fact.
I don't notice a big change. Now, I got worried when the Amish guys took that, when they put in the patio and they took all that dirt away, and they literally plowed like down half the wood line next to my house. And honest to God, I looked at my husband and I said, oh my God, somebody's not going to be happy. And he was like, who? And I'm like, you know who? He ain't going to be happy that half his wood line is gone. I'm like, he's going to be pissed. I mean, nothing really happened, although I did get negative activity after the whole group of us was here the last time.
Yeah.
I got we had like 4 or 5 people in the woods by my house, and we're actively investigating in the middle of the night. And after everybody left, I was sitting out on the porch in the dark. I was working on the computer, and it was just not a good feeling outside. Like, it was very heavy. It was not welcoming. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going in the house. And I went in, but it's been okay since then. I think he was just letting me know that, I like having you here. I don't mind being friends with you, but don't come in my woods in the middle of the night and be like looking for me. I don't think he appreciated that. I don't think he appreciated that at all.
No. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So and probably the best advice I can give anybody, if you're going to go out and research, find one friend, at least one, that's slower than you. So if things go to hell, you're not going to get caught.
Not going to be me, Gwen.
Right. I don't have to be the fastest. I just have to be faster than the slowest.
Then we need to find somebody slower than the both of us.
And that's what I've lived by. You know what I mean?
We used to live in Alaska, and that's exactly what we used to say when we went hunting. We always had to make sure that
Oh, yeah.
we had the slowest person with us so that we could get out.
See, great minds think alike.
Yeah. What do you think about? I mean, you're on the side of him being a flesh and blood. I haven't quite decided where I land on that spectrum because just so many weird, odd things have happened that I don't have any explanation for other than, he went poof and he was gone, or I don't know how to explain some of this stuff. So how do you, in your mind, when something happens that is completely unexplainable, that you have no logical reason for it happening, do you still say definitely flesh and blood? Like, I'm just curious because I want to be on the flesh and blood side, but I just don't know.
Right. No, I base that solely on my experiences. You know what I mean? I've not had the, touch a tree and go. I've had the physical footprint. So if it's, to me, if it's just not a terrestrial being, there would be no reason to leave that track. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's in the hair cover. And like you said, I don't know how the stench is at your place, but ours, it's not skunk. It's just heavy musk.
Yeah, it's like garbage. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, and it's just, and I think with me, I kind of buy into the Gigantopithecus came across, and the fact that, like I have a friend that lived in Nampa, Idaho. Well, Nampa means footprint or whatever, so the Native Americans, so it's just kind of me, and I want to think if it's an interdimensional being, would it look like a Wookiee? So that's kind of, where my logical mind takes me, and you would think hygiene wise, if it were a higher evolved species, so that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, if I have that experience, thank you. You know what I mean? Is there a reason call them skunk ape, So, but that's, to me, but like the paranormal stuff, I've seen cups pick up and move. And, I've had here, I was working in the hallway and I'm the only one downstairs and my one doorknob opens and the door opens. So from a rational being, you start systematically, checking that off. So, but with the Bigfoot, like I said, everything to me has been, a primate or an above average primate. So that that's kind of, and I'll never dismiss, like with your experiences, I've just not had them. But to me, it doesn't fit into the, where I've been.
Yeah.
So in your research and in all of the experiences that you've had, have you had that, I'm just going to, the oh shit moment of where you've been scared when you've been out researching?
Like I said, the biggest thing is even now, like if I go out and I'm burning wood or something like that, it's that initial heavy around you and you just don't know where it's at. And there's that one instinct moment where you're like, you know what? I hope this thing is a herbivore and not an omnivore because my middle-aged fat ass is going to get ran down and eaten. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not as fast as I was at 50 as I was at 20. So that's kind of, for me, that's where I still get that moment. And sometimes you'll walk into houses and you'll just be like, man, that's what gets me more than like the Bigfoot is, that kind of stuff. Because you're like, man, something's just not right here.
Yeah.
I told my
because
husband
I get that when I go into
allowed
people's
to,
house.
I told my husband that when we start looking for homes, we're not doing any of this virtual crap. I need to walk into the house before we purchase this house so I know what the heck's going on. because I am not doing that. Like, I'm not living. I don't mind living with spirits. I really don't. But then there's those heavy spirits that will affect you for the rest of your life. No, thank you.
Yeah, I had friends that they bought a house and it used to be a mortuary in the bottom, and they wanted to come down and show me the table and slabs. I'm like, no, I'm good. Nope, I'm not. Yep, not taking it home with me. I don't even go. There's an antique store here I love to go to. I'm not buying an old camera. You know, even though I said I don't believe in haunted appliances, I'm not buying an old camera. I'm not buying any of that stuff. You know.
No, you're not going to pick up a doll and take it home.
And as my husband says, he prefers things from the 1800s. So don't I. But as long as it's not like haunted by a spirit that's going to kill me, then I'm good.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't want shot because it was from the South and I'm from the North. Yeah, I don't. So. Yeah.
I just had shoulder surgery, and my husband said, do you want to sleep upstairs in the upstairs bedroom? It's a Craftmatic, so you can adjust it. And I went, no. And he said, are you afraid? Yeah. And I said, yes, I'm not going upstairs and sleeping in the upstairs bedroom because that's where the ghosts hang out. And I'm not going up there. Like, I know they're there. Everything's all good. And, you know, they show themselves once in a while, but I don't want to go in there. I just don't want to spend the night in there.
No, but yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. And like that's with our activity here, I'm very much I'm very much a man of faith. So I don't have as many experiences here, you know, because I essentially said, you know, listen, you know, unless you died on the cross for my sin, you're not welcome in this house if you're going to act this way. If you can act like a good civilized Christian ghost, you're good. Otherwise, we're going to have to get other living arrangements. You know.
In our last house where we used to live, we had one ghost. I actually believe we only had one in the house, or two. I'm not 100% sure. But pushed my daughter down the stairs. She was only like 9 at the time. And I got very angry and I was like, do not touch my children. Don't ever do it. Don't ever, like, there's going to be issues. She never had a problem, but man, after that, they would slam doors in our house. They would lock our children in their bedrooms and they couldn't get out. They would holler mommy through the house and make me think that my kids were home. So it was just innocent things, but that one pushing my daughter down the stairs, I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. And like I said, my wife is, you know, on that sensitive, you know, side there. And, you know, she's had her hair pulled. She has scratch marks on her, you know, that kind of stuff. And that's when it becomes afraid because I can defend myself, you know, but when they come after your family, especially the young children, you're like, I'm not cool with that. And that's when it gets creepy. You know?
No.
Yeah.
I actually had to tell some ghosts when we rescued a dog and she didn't want to go near that back hallway where the back bedroom is. And she wouldn't go near the steps to go down the steps. And I practically dragged this dog to the stairs and made her go downstairs. And then I got mad and I went back upstairs and I was like, listen, you know, you're all welcome to stay here, but you leave the dogs alone. And if you can't leave the dogs alone, then you got to go. And she's been fine since then. So you got to go.
You know, that's a good point. You know, that's a good point with the animals. Like we have the one dog that'll sit at the bottom of our steps and just stare at the second step and bark. And at first you're like, okay, stop it. And then you're like, what are you seeing that I don't, that has your attention? Because it's not wood grain. There's something else there. And so that's when it can be, you know, unnerving and, you know.
And, you know, I know you talk about the animals and everything, but my granddaughter, now that she's obviously she actually talks to things or points at things that we can't see. And I'm sure it's family members or something that have been around or hanging around or whatever. And she sees them all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to start working on your stuff there, young lady, because somebody's got something happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
so any big researching that you're going to be doing here in the near future? I know that you got your books and all that and your screenplays, but anything big happening in your Bigfoot research in the near future?
You know, I kind of just keep it open, you know, until I get someone sends something or you hear something, then you try to make time, to go out. And like I said, I don't honestly get out as much, as I would like to or I want to, and it's just kind of like, because after you hit like 60, 65 hours, you're just like, I just want a couch. I want an old movie, and I just don't want to see anybody. So, and it's kind of hard to sometimes with you guys is probably when you're earlier into it and you're younger into it, you run at everything. And now that you kind of
but we're the same age as you, so let's not fool this.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So now that we kind of have a little more tools, I'm not as excited as someone who says, they saw one here and show me one picture, when did you see it? No tracks. So it has to be kind of now, it has to be something that you're like, well, this is real good. I'm going to rearrange my life, and I guess with me too, probably with you guys having had those experiences, it's kind of like you've had it.
I think the only time that we would rearrange our lives is if we find that someone's having current experiences like now and they want us to like, really check it out. I think that I would jump. I'd be like, okay, I'm putting in 3 days of leave right now and I'm on my way.
Right. And you're right. So it has to be, because it's no longer, everything's not a steak. Now a lot of the stuff is just chipped ham, where it's kind of like, been there, done that, and a lot of the stuff we get, it's like apparently Bigfoot has a theater background because half the films you get or pictures, he's exiting stage left, stage right, that perfect frame that unfortunately Patterson and Gimlin gave us, that everyone emulates. So, So it's the 1% that excites me. The other 99, I'm like, someone else can go chase it. If you tell me, hey, I got one setting in my living room, give me 10 minutes and I'll be there.
Yeah.
The paranormal stuff, it's a little more somewhat exciting because that dimension, that door, there's so much more unknown and unexplained with that. And so you can go see people, and like you said, you go out there and some people, this is happening. Well, yes, because you have a 7-inch crack in your foundation. So you have wind blowing through your house, so that's kind of, I'm probably sure, with us doing the more remodeling, it'll be interesting to see what plays out here yet again.
Well, I'm game for coming to your house and checking it out.
Oh, absolutely. You guys have fun. Yeah, like I said, we got about 200 acres that we could go and chase the big guy. Oh my gosh,
that would be amazing.
I got a tent, man. That's what we do at Gwen's. I just pitch my tent and we're up all night.
I got a tent.
We go.
Yeah, that's something to definitely look at for the future. I mean, it's fun to go out there, and it's there's path cut, and it's kind of one of those. It's just property that I'm like, well, the gas well owns next to me and across from me. You know what? Just buy me out, and then I can just be a full-time researcher.
There you go.
But,
right.
So, yeah.
Always looking for the opportunity.
Yeah. You have to hustle. You got to. Yeah.
I'll take the fire pit with the camaraderie of people who think and have the same experiences. It is honestly the best time that I've had since I've been researching is just really getting to know everybody who's been in the field and being able to just get everybody else's experiences, and everybody's a little different than everybody else. Their styles are so different. It is absolutely amazing getting to know those people just around the fire. That is just, to me, the best.
Yeah. And probably with you guys, I've, through meeting people, you have a core group that's really good. And then you have some of the ones that like to be a superstar. They can kind of be douchebaggy about it. And you're just kind of like,
we don't know
you've sold
any
some
of them.
books, No, I'm sure we could go list a whole bunch right now. And I'm sure they'd all be the same ones. And those Texas people can be a little hard to swallow sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to go where they are and have the experiences that they claim to have. That would be amazing. Then I'll be like, okay,
Yeah.
I believe every word you say. But I want to see
Right.
it.
You
I
know,
want to see it
and
myself.
exactly. You know, if you can be that much of an expert that you know all of that, well, take me where you're at, and you know, some of our activity you won't have any for maybe noticeable for a year, and then he's just like,
Right.
guess what? It's a reunion tour. We're getting the band back together. You know, we're gonna slap your swimming
Mhm.
pool. We're gonna yell and scream. We're gonna so.
I really do think they're migratory, and they really do have their own areas that they like to go at specific times and specific places. And I mean, I just wish I knew where they were gonna be when they were gonna be there.
Right, and I'm on board with the migratory thing. That's kind of where I'm kind of at with it too. You know,
I
it's
recently
kinda
saw
wholeheartedly what
a lecture by Cliff Brockman where he says he now believes that they stay within maybe a 20 or 30 mile radius. And like some people are lucky and get lots of footprints, and he's been analyzing them, and he's determined that they're from the same suspect, which I found
Yeah,
kind of
and I
interesting.
like Cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of
But I thought
meeting him when Finding
that kind
Bigfoot
of
was
goes
a reunion
against
pack.
all of the migratory stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of, that was just kind of strange because it goes against all of that migratory mindset that people have where they think they migrate from place to place. So now I'm like,
Well,
so now you're telling us they stay
snowbirds.
in 30 miles.
You could have like the snowbirds, they go from north to south, and then you have other people who just stay in one spot. I mean, they could be very similar to, believe it or not, they could be very similar to us. And,
Cool.
some stay in a certain area, like you said, 30, 50 miles. Some may go from north to south. Who knows? I mean, right, let's go. I'm researching.
I guess my ultimate question is if I could communicate with them would be if they're a family unit, how does that marriage between a Bigfoot work? Because sometimes we all know it can be testy. And I'm just curious that if they have kids that don't listen, how do they handle that?
Oh, absolutely.
I also think that the ones that we usually have most of the problems with, I think, could be possibly the juveniles, like, because they're being just like our teenagers. Like, they're not going to listen. They're poking the bear. They're just, oh, these are check out the humans. Let's go see what they're going to do today.
Yeah, it's kind of the same if you've ever hunted. Typically, the trophy bucks are the older bucks because they've learned wisdom, and
Correct.
So wonderful, very good point that if you have the younger ones, they may be the ones with more of the interactions because they don't quite know how bad we suck at on this earth. We're just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, David, female Bigfoots rule overall. Females rule, period. Just saying.
Well, you couldn't get them to believe otherwise anyway. So,
right. Every man watching is going, "Oh my God."
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Well, you're always welcome, Tim, to come up here and check this out up here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
We get our most evidence sitting around the fire.
I won't guarantee you'll have an experience, but people have come, not this last time, the last time, but before, about a month ago, we had a couple of our friends come up. One of them was Sean, and Matt, he's been on the show too. And believe it or not, we're sitting around the fire, and we haven't told anybody else this, but here we go, Gwen. I'm going to let it out of the bag. Literally not even a few minutes after Sean sat down, he hears a whoop. And he looked at Gwen and he goes, "Holy shit, I just heard a whoop." And I actually got it on audio, which was even better. And Sean was totally excited. And what is great is when you have a researcher like Sean and yourself, people who have been doing this for 20 plus years, and to see the excitement, rekindle itself was probably my most favorite thing with Sean. Just seeing him rekindle his love for the research and everything else. It was really amazing.
He left my house and said, "I'm
Sean.
buying new hiking." Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I've known Eric, I said Altman forever, and Eric is to me one of the best. And sometimes I feel bad for him because he's out there and he's been legitimate about everything he does. He's like us. He tries to disprove to prove, and then the Bigfoot community can sometimes be full of jackasses that are trying to one up everybody. Like I said before, I'm the expert. I'm this, and so like Sean, Eric are just you're two of the best. And they've had so much fun over the years talking to them when they did the radio shows and stuff, and so like I said, met a bunch of people, and you try not to let the few that the Tom Biscardis and people like that ruin it for everybody.
Yeah, because I've seen some posts like on some of the other Bigfoot groups, and there's one person in particular, I won't say his name, but the way he tears people apart just kills me. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I just want to get on there and go, will you knock it the hell off? Like, but I can't.
Right.
You'll never see him on this show because I will never invite him. But man,
and I think we've all been there, because there's some posts that you're just like, you kind of need help, but you just kind of have to just not hit that send button, and you have to be nice sometimes.
Yeah.
Just keep
there's
it
some people that tear everything
or private message. Yeah. Or you just private message somebody and go, there's not gnomes playing football in their front yard. You do know that, right? So, but yeah, it is kind of hard sometimes.
But do you think people like him, and again, I'm not going to mention his name, not on air anyway, because I'm not that person, but do you think because of people like him that there's actual evidence, that there's an actual good picture, there's an actual perfect footprint out there that people are not putting out there because they don't want that kind of criticism?
I think so.
Yeah. Because it's kind of one of those, like, even me, I'm comfortable in my own, skin now that I'll talk to anybody. The store that I manage, if someone has a Bigfoot sticker on their car, I'm going to find out, is that just a sticker? Have you had an experience? But you do have people that, because it's going to throw your life upside down, and people are going to look at you, could begin, I don't know about you guys. My first experience, I'm like, I'm losing my mind because I know what I saw. How do I explain it? And just that ridicule, even some of my, my friends, I'm sure I'm going to get mocked by some of them over this, you know what I mean? But
I've never had a class A like you both, and I may never have a class A, and that's fine. But I've had enough experiences of other things to make a validation for me. Like I feel like I've had enough experiences to where I feel like it's been a validation.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, majority of the sightings and researchers are just normal people like us. We're not, we're not eccentric lunatics. Maybe you have the ones that are out who have mental health issues sometimes, and you have the ones who are trying to fleece people for money, and it's like every day I'm getting a message that there's a Bigfoot festival or a Bigfoot calling contest or and it's just like, it's good that people are out there, but it's also, it's good that more people are out there, but it's kind of like giving, people guns who shouldn't have guns. Just because they want them, it's not going to end well,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get the people, same with the paranormal research. They go and they buy this equipment. And unfortunately, a lot of times they get in over their head, and they don't, if it goes south,
Right.
Shame on you for, so I think, you have to have a logical mind, and I know you guys, like you said, you hear the noises, you want to find out before you instantly go, oh, is it a truck backfiring, so.
Right.
But yeah,
what animal
it's a
could
fun
make
world
that
to get
sound?
into,
I've said that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm the one that'll go up there and I'll be like, oh no, this creature. Ask Gwen. I'm like, oh no, it sounds just like this. This could be this, and she's like, and I'm like, okay, but she does the same thing for me. And I think when we're listening to audio or doing whatever we're doing, we really critique each other so much that we almost don't believe we actually hear something sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like it's weird because if you live in the country and you've ever heard a bobcat, okay, it will make you question your manhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're looking for the closest door, and you're like, ooh. So, now we have coyotes.
We just heard a Fisher cat.
Like, you feel like Bela Lugosi. Yeah.
The Fisher cat sounded terrible. And well, what we heard, and then later on, I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know. There's got to be another animal that makes that sound. So I started pulling up animal sounds, and then I emailed them all right away and went, I don't think that was a Bigfoot. I think that was a Fisher cat, which is equally cool because I did not think we had them around here.
Yeah.
So now I'm like wanting to get my game trail cameras out so I can try to catch the Fisher cat. It's just
right.
We're always in the mode of debunking before saying, yeah.
Yeah, growing up, in the country, if you saw a fox, it was such a rare, sighting, and like I said, you're out in the woods every day on the farm, So the Fisher cats, I've seen one in, my 49 years. And it's
the sound
crazy.
we definitely heard, I believe, was 100% Fisher cat. And like someone just said, they're very aggressive, and they are very aggressive. They're like badgers, and they're just not nice. So I mean, it could explain a lot of things in the area, but don't worry. The Bigfoot at Gwen's house mimics her all the time. I know. I've heard it with my own ears.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I just saw that.
No, that Bigfoot mimics her.
Yeah.
I've heard it with my own ears. I was even flabbergasted. I really couldn't even explain it. Like, to the point where I was questioning her, like, the moment she woke up. Like, I was like...
As soon as I got out of the tent, she started bombarding me, and I was like, well, good morning. Like... Like, she didn't even say good morning. It was right away. And it's which lends to reason that I think they've been watching me for a lot longer than I know they've been watching me.
I think they have.
Yeah.
And again, probably you wonder they're observing and gaining knowledge, and absolutely. And I think the mimicry, it's it makes sense because parakeets, any kind of you'll be birds out here, you'll whistle, and then that bird will whistle exactly the same thing you just whistled back. And the first time that happens, that catches you off guard.
Yep. It caught me off guard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like some of the other things, like, people will talk to me like about Dogman, and, like the werewolves and stuff. And that's the hardest thing for me logically, because I can't get that out of my head that if a human's going to shift into a werewolf, I can't see bones instantly growing and shrinking. And that's for the science. The science sometimes logically doesn't add up to me,
Right.
And like I follow, and like the latest thing I've seen is there's Mothman sightings, like 15 a day someplace. And I'm just like, this city, that city.
Yep.
It's sometimes hard to decipher through that, because there's stuff out there, but at what point are people just making stuff up to get people to come to their small town, like the Lizard Man and stuff like that. I mean, Scotland's got a pretty good tourist industry.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie, when you mentioned Nessie or
Yeah.
Loch Ness, that has had to be my first cryptid that I was totally enamored with when I was younger. I used to live in Vermont, so Lake Champlain was obviously a huge area for me, and
Yeah.
Nessie was a
Oh,
huge
absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, that was my first love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm and I
Yeah.
still believe that, the stuff's out there, and, what variation is. I've always bought into where they said, the tunnels, it goes out to the sea and can come back, and I kind of actually based that, the follow-up screenplays kind of in the South, similar. It's coming in, through the tunnels, the tunnel collapses and it gets stuck, so that I can see, like a breeding ground. But sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but I was just flabbergasted by the severe amount of cryptoids and cryptids and things that exist, and how much. So it's
There's
kind of
more
how
than
much
I
is
can
that is
keep up with.
folklore. Yeah, and I'm kind of the same thing. Okay, anything if it says the grass man, dog man, I just say, hey, that's Bigfoot. That's how I've always been.
It is.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So David has a question.
Yeah, does he? Some structures are like a teepee. Native Americans learn from Bigfoot, or Bigfoot learn it from Native Americans. That's a good question.
Yeah.
So who do you think had the teepees first?
Who came first, the chicken or the egg?
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, I said from my experiences, like you said, we'd find the big nest-like structures with just the big branches.
Right.
I would think if anyone had insight, would be the ancestors like that may have had more experience and closer encounters with them. I always there was a story, a gentleman was talking about, well, man and dinosaurs didn't live together, and the guy's argument was, well, if they didn't, how would they have a cave painting of them? Because it's not like they could have looked them up on YouTube or had a picture. So they drew these perfect replicas, so they had to see them somehow.
That was their Google.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's, I'm sure the interaction between them and that would have been, something to look into. Yep, absolutely.
I'm not going to butcher your last name at all, but they had an experience in Eastern New York. 100% they mimic animals and people. They use owl sounds, knocks, whistles, and some pretty freaky vocalizations. Yeah, I agree, because I get them right here in my backyard. Yeah. That morning in particular, I have a chicken coop, and every morning when I go out there, I always say, I laughed today because I said it and I chuckled as soon as it came out of my mouth. I was like, hey girls, what are you doing today? And I take food out and I feed them, and then that's what she heard Bigfoot say. I was sleeping in the tent and she thought I was outside because she heard my voice come from the chicken coop that said, hey ladies. And so when I came out of the tent, she was waiting for me.
First, I heard footsteps behind my tent, and I was like, well, those pretty heavy footsteps, bipedal, I was like, okay, maybe it was Gwen walking from behind my tent from her house to the chicken coop. But they were way too heavy.
Right.
I tried to debunk it myself. I tried to see if there was any way that I could reenact those things. I could not. It was very heavy. And literally I heard them I heard the girls, which were the chickens, and I heard her say, hey ladies. And I was like, oh, Gwen's up. Gwen is not up. Where the hell's Gwen?
Sounds sweet.
Yeah. Now, your experience have mostly been nocturnal?
It was early in the morning. So we've had our experience
early in the morning,
later at night to no more than our knock was at 6:30, wasn't it, Gwen? 6:30. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
about
kind of
the
the
same
same
time I
with
heard
us.
hey ladies.
Yeah, I had noticed a new trail opened up. There was stuff pounded down, like somebody had been walking through there. And so I went to the back of the chicken coop to look for footprints, and Carrie was on the front of the chicken coop, and from behind us there was one loud knock. And we both looked at each other, like it was almost like they were saying, "Hey, they're awake." You know, watch yourself, they're up now. Is how I felt. As soon as odd, as weird as that sounds, that's
And we
exactly
both
how
said
I
the
took
same
it.
thing at the same
Like,
time.
Yeah.
It's like they knocked to let everybody know that we were up.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Which tells me there's got to be more than one. If there's only one, then
then he's fast, or he's throwing sticks. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that.
So I don't know.
That to me, like I said, it's the family units. Is a theory that I really like and buy into. That kind of research and stuff of it. This is a fascinating part.
Right.
It's
right.
been fascinating.
Don't
for
get
us.
too much. Yeah. I don't get a whole lot into the lone one spotted at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't, again, from my experience, it doesn't fit the time pattern.
Right.
Right.
I always figure animals love to move either really early in the morning or at like dusk or something like that, because that's when most animals or nocturnal animals like to start coming out. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you live in the country, you go out at night to take your dog. I don't care how old you are, a possum coming around the corner still makes you jump 3 feet in the air.
Yeah.
I've seen them all my life, but you're like, whoa, where'd you come from? So.
Bats scare the crap out of me all the time. They come flying at me, and I'm like, what? I'm done.
Yeah.
I can tell you that before I saw Bigfoot a year and a half ago, I could have taken or leaving the whole subject. I was always like, well, if they find one, that's cool. If they don't find one, that means there isn't one. And then I saw one, and my whole freaking life has changed. Like, I'm constantly like scanning the woods when we're driving somewhere. I'm on high alert all the time at my house because I never know what's going to happen next. How are the dogs reacting? How are the chickens reacting? Like when I hear my rooster crowing at 2 o'clock in the morning, I know something's going on because he doesn't crow normally in the middle of the night. So he's doing his protective thing. So I know that something, no matter what it is, something is going on that's creating him to be on alert. So whether it's a bear or somebody's other dog or a cat or a fox or Bigfoot, something is happening. So I'm always aware of what's happening around my house now. High alert.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, that having access to the chicken coop and you've not lost a chicken, kind of to me still points to them not, necessarily being omnivores, but more just forager. Unless you've had some chickens escape or have vanished, then that leads to into the fish poultry area. So
probably
literally tore her back,
tore my chicken coop apart, and got I'm missing 2 or 3 chickens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it literally pulled the bottom fencing away, and the top fencing is just stapled fast. It's just chicken wire. The bottom fencing is heavy wire. And it just literally took that chicken fencing at the top and peeled it back like the top of a sardine can. It was the weirdest thing. I thought somebody with opposable thumbs and fingers would have had to get in there and pull that bottom part away.
Yeah.
But to roll that top part up,
yeah.
it did was like, yeah. No, so I have had something happen with chickens, but I fixed that though. I got an electric fence.
Oh, okay. You do like to tempt fate, don't you? Yeah, shock him, and then he'll be waiting outside for you.
But I will say, the first time that we actually spent the weekend at Gwen's, I've had chickens too, so I know over time.
And when I go out in the morning,
we might have lost her.
She froze me. So he probably heard her, and I think he disconnected her electric.
Oh, a little bit. I didn't really get to. Oh, there she goes. Well, when the weekend that first weekend when we went to Gwen's, I asked her over and over and over again, I'm like, do your chickens always do this? I was like, I've had chickens my whole life, never had any issues with these chickens doing this. Her chickens talked all night long. They didn't stop. The rooster kept crowing, and the chickens were just pluck, pluck, pluck all night. Like, Gwen, this isn't normal. Chickens don't do this. Chickens normally are dayers, and then at night they just kind of really chillax. Hers never shut up. We heard growl. That's the night we heard a growl. We heard a wood knock. We heard, holy Toledo. I was like, your house is active. Hey, it was crazy.
So, I mean, that sounds like a perfect spot for the trail cam. You know.
I put one out. I even put security cameras on the side of the chicken coop.
Okay.
I got
avoid
nothing.
all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I ended up having to take them down.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the others sometimes you wonder about is, like, again, we talked about before, the intelligent levels of where they're at, you know, to do that kind of stuff, you know. So that's kind of where, for me, the fascinating part, you know, comes in, because it ain't just your normal animals around the house. Like, we have a collie shepherd, and she plays catch with herself. She'll take the ball to the top of the stairs, drop it, chase it down the steps, you know. But, you know, then I have my other dog, like I said, the one that barks at the steps. He just, hello, you know, happy bird. He's just as dumb as a stump. You know? So, yeah, so to see the different intelligence levels of, you know, where they're at, you know, what they can do, you know. You know, like I said, we also have, like I said, we've started with a bunch of coyotes and stuff now, so you kind of wonder, you know, they're pack hunters, you know,
Right.
if there's ever been those kind of encounters and stuff. So there's, you know, that's kind of cool stuff to ponder and think about, you know.
I agree.
Yeah, because we have coyotes here too. You can hear them.
Yeah, and the only thing they've actually really done for us is that they've really helped control the stray cat population, unfortunately, out in the country, you know, especially in the spring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Circle of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's sad, isn't
Yeah,
it?
they can hear them sing, but.
It's interesting. It's interesting to listen to the coyotes.
It's always interesting to hear the coyotes and hear the sounds that are within the coyotes that you're like, that wasn't a coyote. What was that? I'm not going to lie. There's been a couple of times where I've heard those noises and been like, that wasn't a coyote. That was something.
Yeah.
And then hearing the coyotes go off again after hearing the said noises, you know what I mean? It's so interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and some of the screams, you know, you've heard over the years, you're just like, wow, that's, you know, it pierces the valley, and you're just like, yeah, like I said, I've grown up in the country. You know, you've heard bobcats, you've heard this. You're like, that's just something different. It's just, you know, and you know, all the people I've talked to, none have been, you know, they've all been normal people, which to me lends so much credibility. You know, the one gentleman I talked to, you know, he said one day, I ran into him because I'm going to you know, there's a Salt Fork up in Ohio, I believe, you know, and I said, oh, well, there's plenty of Bigfoots up there, and he just went stone cold, and he's like, this is a 70-year-old man. He goes, the last time we were up there, he's like, we were out in the boat, and he's like, we went, you know, back in this little cove, and he said whatever it was screamed was enough that we turned our boat around and we went back, packed our stuff up, and we left. So to hear those stories add so much credence to, you know, and I'm like, I can understand that,
Pretty amazing.
you know.
Yeah.
I've never heard that scream.
So Bodie wants to know.
Knew, I'll know.
So Bodie wants to know why I took my cameras down. So I took the cameras down because I wasn't getting anything on the cameras, absolutely nothing. And I kind of wanted to see, first of all, if I'm not getting anything, what's the point of having them up? And second, I wanted to see if taking them down made a difference. So whatever it is avoiding the cameras. So if I take them down, will they start coming in again? And well, that's exactly what happened. Only I know the cameras aren't going to work, so I didn't put them back out.
Well, the other thing too, but people will like to do the food sharing where they leave like apples and stuff on stumps in the middle of the woods, and then it's gone the next day. And I'm kind of like, I that never sets well with me because you're in the middle of the woods and you're putting fruit on the stump, you know. So, you know, like I said, believer. I don't even say skeptical believer, but it's just like the pragmatic believer. That's like, you know. If you put an apple in the middle of the woods, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be Bigfoot. It's going to be something take it, you know, in the middle of the night.
Oh, a bear, anything's going to take it. A raccoon.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and you know, with our dumpster bins here, you know, we've got cement blocks on top of them because you can see the, you know, the raccoons, like they'll open them, they'll be out there playing cards, you know, having a banjo. It's just like, how intelligent can you guys be?
Coons are super intelligent.
Sure
It's crazy.
Yeah, you know, it's almost sure to you having to padlock them. So, you know, to think something that, you know, 100% that the Sasquatch can, you know, make that choice to avoid detection. Like we were talking earlier, it's generational, so they can kind of show, hey, stay, you know, don't do that, stay away from here, you know.
We're not actually, so Bodie was trying to say it's a Bigfoot deterrent to keep your cameras up. And honestly, Bodie, it's not even, I hope I'm saying your name right, it's not even about like deterring her Bigfoot. Her Bigfoot really is, I personally believe, I shouldn't say her Bigfoot, the family of Bigfoots that surround Gwen's house really aren't, they're not mean, they're not aggressive, they're not anything else. So we don't really have to really deter them. They're not, it's actually kind of cool to interact with them differently and respecting their boundaries. And they pretty much respect Gwen's too at the same time, minus the chicken coop incident. But since then, there hasn't really been too many incidents like that at her house. So yes, they're a deterrent, but at the same time, you know, they're not really staying away. They just go around them.
You know, and that's kind of like that's my experience. Yeah, that's kind of my experience too. They're just kind of here and we coexist. You know?
That's exactly what happens with Gwen. Gwen coexists with them, and like I said, they don't do anything. They're cool. They're not causing any harm. The days that Gwen does have issues, you know, or feels that eeriness or whatever, nothing bad happens. She just usually goes inside and keeps it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what happens to Gwen.
Right. There are days. Well, see, she was out there and, you know, she was trying to take his picture. She's probably like, okay. So we'll see about that. So. Yeah.
Nope, she said she lost all her internet access. So if there's anything, so I guess we've been at this for over an hour and a half, and you thought we'd probably bore you to death.
Yeah.
We have appreciated having you.
It's been a wonderful time. So.
Fantastic.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Whenever you have anything you want to come back, let us know. We would be more than happy to have you.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I'll keep you guys in mind with the remodeling going on, kind of what goes on with there, and you know, maybe we'll get together and can research sometime. But
I'll speak for Gwen. We'll love that. That would be fabulous.
Absolutely.
My husband and I are near Washington County quite a lot, so yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and we go down there because that's where family in Pittsburgh. So
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah.
Absolutely.
So, oh, wait. There she is. I was just trying to wrap it up, Gwen. I don't even know how to do that yet because I normally never wrap it up, but I'll let you take the rest.
Yeah. I'm having internet issues, so who knows how much longer I'm going to be able to be on here.
Well, I asked him to come back again for
right,
sure.
So I don't know what's happening.
That's okay. I asked him to come back for sure, and he invited us to come
and let us know when we can come to your place.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure that all out. So yeah.
Absolutely. Let us know when we can come to your spot.
Yeah,
I'll bring ghost equipment and Bigfoot equipment. We'll
there we go. We'll stir everything up. Yeah.
I'm freezing again. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that I think is going. Yeah, I think she just messaged me again. So I think that's going to be wrapping it up for our show. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We enjoyed having you. And again, if anybody has any experiences or anything else like that, and you'd like to tell Gwen or I about it, please send us an email. And we're glad I never end the show. It's usually Gwen that ends the show. So thank you guys all very much for having us here tonight. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Hey, this is Chuck Larson. You're watching the CARC channel on YouTube.
You've been watching From Behind Tall Trees, a Catskill Appalachian Research Collective production. For more information on this program and others like it, remember to like, share, and subscribe to CARC Universal today. To join the conversation on our Facebook group, become a member of the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Facebook group. CARC. Relentless.